You're listening to another stimulating adventure in the world of neuromonitoring. This is the IONM4LIFE podcast with your host, Scott Moore.
Hello, neurodiagnostic community. This is Scott Moore, host of the IONM4LIFE podcast, your independent voice in the field of neuromonitoring. Today, we have a special guest. We have with us today Logan McKnight. Logan is founder of GoodKnight Consulting. Logan has spent 19 years in neurodiagnostics, started as a technologist like us and worked her way through management, director, VP, and CEO roles. She has built teams across the US, launched a company in India in 2017, and supported surgical mission trips to Africa, the West Indies, and Asia. She's experienced burnout from every seat in the room. And today, she's here to share what she's learned about preventing it by better understanding the neuroscience behind it. Here's Logan.
Thanks, Scott. That was a hell of an intro. I appreciate it.
How are you doing today, Logan?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Yeah, just a balmy 55-day here in Seattle. So
Yeah. Well, we're recording this episode in the middle of the big winter storm that has gripped most of the United States. So, Logan, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm feeling a little burned out.
yeah, I could imagine. I know this is like peak burnout time is just past like the December rush and the bleak of January for most people. It's rough.
Logan just recently completed a lecture series that we're going to host on at myneuropathway.com. Neuro Pathway loves to present educational content from leaders across our field. She just completed a lecture series, which is going live right at the beginning of February. So right around the time this podcast is going to drop. You can find her lecture at myneuropathway.com. It is titled Managing Burnout in Neurodiagnostics, the Neuroscience Behind Burnout, how to help prevent it. Very important topic for people that work in intraoperative neuromonitoring. So Logan, tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all. I mean, obviously I gave you kind of an introduction, but like, how did you get into IONM in the first place?
Oh gosh. I was a psych major and I switched to pre-med because I wanted to go to vet school. And then I kind of panicked last minute, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I had a friend who worked for Biotronic at the time, and you and I both worked for Biotronic at a certain point in time. And when he told me that he was in surgery every day, and I mean, honestly, I was 21 at the time, so he told me he didn't have to work every day. And I think there was something there that was exciting. So I thought, and I got into it and I thought, okay, this is great. I can figure out what I want to do while I work this job and figure out, do I want to go to med school? Do I want to do research? And honestly, I kind of fell in love with the field. I started in Michigan and Ohio, and I moved to Indiana, and then I went down to Florida and managed my first team, and then moved out to Seattle. And I think I've been like in almost every US state. I think I've hit 44 US states that I've covered for neuromonitoring since I've started. And mission trips to Ghana, to Barbados, and Nepal, and India. So it's been a wild ride. And I really do like neuromonitoring will always be my home and have a special place in my heart.
Fantastic. And you're building this great resource for leadership in healthcare in particular from your experience in neuromonitoring. So you're one of the success stories that I think we need more of, because I've said it for a while. I really want to see more people kind of graduate out of the neurodiagnostic field into other adjacent areas of healthcare. So essentially, we have allies in the world like you that are out there doing coaching or doing leadership, education, training, administration, that have a neuromonitoring background. So people can look at you and say, hey, here's someone that's doing some big things, and they came from a neuromonitoring pathway. So you're a success story that I think will, hopefully more people will follow you, and hopefully you'll inspire more people with what you're doing. And neuromonitoring really is a worldwide profession, and there's so many great professionals out there. I've talked to people from Puerto Rico, Ivory Coast, Iran, England, Kenya, so many different countries, Egypt, so many different countries I could tell you about, and have had the chance to kind of get to know them. And you've done some great work on surgical mission trips to some of these countries as well. Again, that's just some fantastic information that I think would be great to share with people in future episodes. But today we're here to talk about burnout. So as mentioned, Neuro Pathway is promoting your new lecture series on burnout, how to identify and how to prevent it. And tell us a little about GoodKnight and kind of what this burnout focus is all about.
Yeah, so I stepped down from my CEO position in 2023 because of burnout. I
Mhm.
was really, going through COVID and all the things we ran, not only the service line of neuro monitoring out in the Pacific Northwest, we also had a medical billing company, a professional services arm with neurologists working with us, and then on top of that, the company in India. So I was running all four companies. And I think I became the CEO maybe 3 months before COVID hit. So I was barely getting my feet underneath me. And then COVID just hit like these gut punches honestly, every couple weeks and putting this out. And so I had to, create this new style of leadership and figuring out how to impact my team and talk to them, especially in India without actually seeing them. And after months and months of that, I think I got really burnout because I was so focused on all the other things. I wasn't really taking care of myself in the ways I needed to. I just felt like I needed to take care of my team and the companies and the mission. And at the end of the day, I think what I realized, especially once I stepped away, is taking care of yourself is not selfish. Like it's such an important part of your to withstand a long career. Like you have to take care of yourself. And so many people, we're in patient care. We think of the patient first. There's always an emergency, there's always a next case, but the reality is like you being in your best headspace, whether you're a leader in a company or you're a technologist in the room, like you have to be sharp. And in order to be sharp, you have to take care of yourself. And if you are burnt out and fried, you are not going to be noticing things. You're not going to be taking care of your people. And so I want to make it more of a, I guess, commonplace thing just to be talking about people's mental health and awareness and I guess the people side of neurodiagnostics, because I think that's been something throughout my career I was really hungry for, but never got. I never got any like professional development or conversations surrounding, how to manage people. It was all trial by fire. And I feel really bad for the first team I managed because they probably had to deal with a lot of my mistakes. But, I think that there's so many really good people in our industry who are just trying their best, and I want to put out more resources for them.
And we appreciate it. And you really have done your homework. I was looking over the lecture that we're about to post up on my at Neuro Pathway regarding burnout. And honestly, it's very beneficial. It's a great talk, and I really look forward to sharing this with our community. Burnout is burnout. So it's such a big issue in healthcare in general.
Hmm.
And obviously at the technologist level, I mean, life in healthcare, life in the operating room is difficult. And once we do start to kind of check out a little bit because maybe just we're tired, or we're hungry, or we're just going through the same routine, it's easy to miss those situations where even in a healthcare perspective, where you miss the call and
Yeah.
false negative kind of scenario where it's like or or the other thing is even with leadership is just identifying when your team member, like someone you're responsible for, is starting to like kind of grind their gears a little bit and just starting to wear out, and how do you identify that early on, make an intervention. So these are all very valuable skills for a manager in healthcare and in neuromonitoring in particular. And you probably can, appreciate this. It seems like over the years, it's a sort of an attrition thing that we move people forward.
Mm.
It's like you have a certain amount of experience. You've seen a certain number of cases. You're the expert in anatomy and physiology, and the expert in troubleshooting technical issues. That's all extremely important, obviously, but it's the people leadership skills that we really need in leaders in neurodiagnostics, and those are the qualities we need to develop and promote. And it's a separate, being a people leader is separate than being a technical leader, being a knowledge
Oh,
leader. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, exactly. These are different pathways, and you're kind of addressing that here, right?
Yeah, it's the conversation. And I think I've talked to so many technologists, both, through my organizations I worked with, and then now being independent and on my own and putting out content and having people join the webinars or just having these one-off conversations. But, I think there's something when you start in neurodiagnostics, like you're given these parameters, right? You stay in your box, you stay in these very clean parameters. And then when you get into leadership and these other spaces, those parameters kind of go away. And so figuring out how to take the skills that you've learned in the OR and translate them into people leadership and stuff like that is something that I see a lot of parallels, but I think it just takes time for people to recognize communicating tough things to a surgeon is very similar to communicating tough things to your team and still being able to walk away with the surgeon not kicking you out of the room or your team member that you're giving feedback that's a little tough to, wanting to work with you, there are a lot of parallels there. So it's just being able to see it and pull those experiences together and create that like that leadership style that's very authentic and to you. I think will help a lot of people stay in the field and see a clear pathway moving forward, whether they stay in the field or grow out of it. I just think it's so necessary for them to reflect back on their time and say, wow, I learned so much and I was able to pull so much from my time in the OR and grow from it.
Tell us, how can we as neurodiagnostic professionals start to recognize burnout in ourselves? And what are some early interventions we can make?
Yeah, so I talk about this in the lecture, but I think one of the biggest things is starting to recognize like the physical signs that you feel during burnout when you start to just feel exhausted. There's different kinds of burnout. There's, like when you had a 14-hour day and you haven't had a sandwich and a glass of water, like that of course is exhaustion burnout, but you normally after the next day or maybe the day after that, you feel better, right? But when you start to not get those breaks and have one thing after another, or you begin to get in this really negative headspace of thinking, this is always going to be like this. I'm really frustrated. When are things going to change? And instead of looking at it in a way of how can I affect positive change, you just feel like the victim. You're, like even going in and affecting the patient in a really positive way doesn't seem to like stick with you. Like you're still negative. Those are really fundamental ways of burnout. Like that's what I started feeling was when I was working with the medical billing company. I realized I wasn't going to be able to impact like the out of network medical billing industry. Like I was like, who am I to impact change here? And it starts to really burn you out when you realize you're not having impact. So it's recognizing that and then also reframing the way you think to become more solution oriented and to take control of the areas that you can to advocate for yourself and impact change so it doesn't just spiral down. I see so many people in our industry who have been here for a very long time who can be so, so negative. And, remembering all the amazing things we get to be a part of in this industry, I think keeps you positive. But if you're not advocating for yourself and you're not really also taking care of yourself, it becomes extremely problematic. So I think first step is recognizing it when you start to see it, and then talk to your manager or leader. Be like, I'm really starting to struggle with these things, and being able to articulate what you're struggling with. Like, is it the schedule? Is it maybe the lack of direction with your career? Is it the leadership or lack of leadership you're getting? And how do you advocate for yourself in these things? And sometimes those are really challenging conversations.
There's a lot to unpack there in what you said. A lot of good information. So let's start with the beginning. So yes, there can be, I guess, let's call it acute burnout, right? So there's those days where you just show up and think you're gonna have like an ACDF and go home, and then they add on the massive train wreck, crane,
Yeah, T2
AP,
to
yeah,
pelvis.
exactly. Total spine replacement case. And that winds up being your case, and that's going to be your day. And next thing you know, you're having like a 14-hour day or 12-hour day or whatever, and it's going to be the long day, and you are going to get burnt out because it's a long day. It might be maybe no one's there to give you a lunch break, and you're
Yeah,
just really on your own, and in an isolated market or something like that. So yeah, that's going to burn you out. Now, look at it from the leadership perspective. This is a situation where obviously you have to kind of go out of your way to make sure you're taking care of people in that capacity. Hey, if you have to drive somewhere and go give this person a break, make it happen, right? Like, I mean,
right.
look out for them, take care of them the next day as best you can.
Reach
Talk to
out to them. I have so
Reach
many
out to them.
people, yeah, who don't hear a peep from their manager. And I think
Mhm.
that's the thing is sometimes in leadership, you're like, well, I don't want to poke the bear. I know this person's going to be pissed during a long day. So if I ask like, hey, how are you doing? I'm just going to get, venom shot back at me. But it's like that is the tough part of being a leader is you do
Mhm.
have to ask, you have to check in with people, right? Like
Mhm.
if you don't know, it's going to come back to bite you.
And give them that chance to vent might just be what they need in that moment too. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
I just had this terrible case. This surgeon was just absolutely just giving me a hard time about absolutely everything. Anytime I go anywhere near the field, I'll try to correct something, was having troubleshooting issues. My
Hmm.
oversight physician wanted me to do X, Y, and Z, and it was just like a nightmare. It was a terrible case. It just really stunk. It was a bad situation, and having that ability to say that, and just voice that frustration can be therapeutic at times, right? And it's like and having your lead manager say, yeah, you know what, that really stunk. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Thank you so much for what you did. That was, it was a very
Yeah.
important case.
You're appreciated.
Monitoring. Appreciate it. Exactly. This is the kind of things that managers need to recognize and focus on. And the earlier you address these, Benjamin Franklin said an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's that idea
Yep.
that, yeah, you just, if you can nick a problem early on, if you give a person that recognition and intervene, hey, I'm gonna drive a half an hour and just get you out for an hour just to give you a break, or like, hey, tomorrow I'm gonna take care of you. I'm gonna make sure that you're the last person on the
Hmm.
schedule, or I'm gonna get you out as soon as possible, whatever it is. You're making the effort. You can't solve all the problems. Healthcare schedule is healthcare schedule. Our staffing is staffing. It is what it is. But it's making the effort goes a long way to make preventing that calcified mentality from setting in and
Yeah.
saying, this is how it's always going to be. This isn't going to change. That's where they start, it starts changing. We're like, well, maybe I need to go out and see what's out there, make it change, look for different companies, some new market to work in, you
Yeah.
know.
No, for
And
sure.
yeah.
It's hard. When I was first trainee, I mean, gosh, this is going to age me, but I mean, started in 2007, right? So,
Hmm.
and I was in Detroit, Michigan in the DMCs, which are real, doing mostly trauma, and it was a tough training, but I remember, I just training, like just being like, this is going to be tough, and I remember thinking like, I don't think I can do this job because it was so tough, and I didn't have any really empathy because I was a trainee, and it almost felt very militaristic of like, I don't want to say hazing, but it almost felt like it was like trial by fire, like,
Hmm.
well, we'll see if you can do it. And then I remember I had a trainee and I was, doing cases at the University of Michigan, which was kind of a black hole. Like you go in, they were long cases, they were training the residents and the fellows and
Hmm.
things like that. So they were, a lot of times plastic would come in and practice their plastic closures. Like
It's
you
always July at that hospital
you were, yeah,
when the
you were
residents
the
start.
but I remember I had a trainee and I'm gonna shout her out. Her name is Amy Hamilton. And she was with
Yeah.
Biotronic, if you remember
Hmm.
her.
I
And
do. Yeah.
she brought I remember she brought a lunch bag in the lounge for me, and we were training on the case, and every 3 or 4 hours she would be like, "Hey, did you eat something?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm good." Like, thinking I'm good. I don't need to eat. I'm not a human being. Like I'm
Hmm.
and she's like, "Girl, go eat." There's something, and I went in, and it was, she was a total like in mom mode, and she had little kids, but she had packed like juice boxes, protein bars, goldfish, snack, and I just remember thinking like I didn't know if I could do it until
Hmm.
that day with her.
Hmm.
And then I thought like if someone like her can do it. And I walked in the OR with her. Everyone loved her. Everyone knew her by name.
Hmm.
She was having so much fun with the job and she had this
Hmm.
big heart and I just was like that's what I want to do. Like
Hmm.
I didn't know if I wanted to do it before, but after seeing her and the way she treated me, I knew I wanted to do it more because I was like if I can be my like the best version of me and a small version of her, like
Hmm.
and have the impact that she had on me to people, like that matters, you know?
That's the kind of mentorship and leadership examples we need in our field. And everything you
Hmm.
say is true. I crossed paths with her out in Hershey, and she's still taking great care of her team. She's very dedicated, very supportive, and just yeah. I mean, she's just one of those leaders we need more of in our field. So absolutely, I could concur.
Yeah.
And yeah, best culture is top down, right? You
Hmm.
set you set the tone at the top, and the people that are following you, are going to say, okay, these are the rules, these are the the rules of engagement or the expectations. So, you know, you can't just go in there and do a 14-hour case and thump your chest and say, yeah, look at me, I just did this. I got no problem. I had no problem. Yeah, it was no big deal. Just 14-hour case, no big deal. You can just say, hey, like that was a hard long case. I did it. It needed to be done. We took care of the patient. We did the right thing. We were professionals. But yeah, that was a long case. I'm tired. I'm hungry, and I'm and recognize it when someone else is doing it. Say, look, good job for doing that. Good, like that was hard. You did something hard there. And giving
Yeah.
people the expectation. It's okay to be hungry. It's okay to feel like, hey, this has been a long day. You know, it's
It's
what
okay
we.
to be a human being. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, but you have to set that. You have to set that expectation, and as a leader, you can't say, "Well, this is how it is. This is just how it is. This is how it always is. This is just what we do." That's not that kind of mentality. Just that's at the point where it's just going to calcify, and someone's going to be like, "You know what? This is how it is. I give up. Nothing's
Yeah.
going to change.
Well,
I'm gonna."
and to echo like the culture being set at the top, like I would say the culture is, yes, you set your culture at the top, right, with
Mhm.
leadership, but it's broken in the middle. Like
Mm-hmm.
culture gets broken by middle management that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel supported, that's out in the field, and because they don't feel supported, maybe they're not supporting their team in the way they
Mm-hmm.
need to. And I genuinely don't think that there are like people who get into management who are like, I can't wait to be a terrible manager. I can't wait to like beat my team up or do this. I just think they are doing what was modeled to them before,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't know what they're supposed to do. And so I think I'm a big advocate for there being professional development and leadership development for field managers, because I think that's where
Yes.
culture starts to break. And I've definitely, in both of us were at Biotronic, and
Mm-hmm.
I think you were manager out in West Coast. I was down in Florida, and
Mm-hmm.
I still remember going and like on rescue missions, and before the strike team and the wolf team were like
Mm-hmm.
things, and
Mm-hmm.
going out to areas that would have these mass exoduses overnight because the team wasn't taken care of and they needed people to come in and basically help retain the accounts. And to me, it was like that was a band-aid fix for a problem of poor leadership in that area. Like
Mm-hmm.
something, if there's 4 or 5 people who quit overnight and rage quit,
Mm-hmm.
you got to pause and say, okay, what are we not doing that we need to be doing in this region to take care of it? And how do we avoid this from happening in other markets and with other team members?
100%. 100%. I absolutely agree. Because one or two things is going to develop. I mean, obviously in that model, I mean, that was like this, okay, we're going to just rush someone, like find the people that want to travel, reward them accordingly, send them in. Okay. That's it is like you said, it's a temporary fix. It's not sustainable, right? And
Hmm.
so one or two things is going to happen. Like we're either going to, if we solve these, if we can solve these issues early, ounce of prevention versus pound of cure,
Hmm.
um, you know, we can prevent a problem, we can allow people to grow, teams to grow, and we can maintain, adequate staffing. Adequate staffing means everyone's getting the time off they need. And,
Hmm.
obviously it develops. So if we don't, then you get that calcified mentality. One or two things is going to happen. They're going to be like, I'm out of here. Like I'm moving on to another opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Then you have to replace them, right? Which, and some studies says it's something along the lines of like 10 times more expensive to replace
Oh,
someone than it is to,
well,
retain
it's
them.
it's that, and then the customers you lose too. Like there's so
Yes.
many surgeons and accounts, and
Mm,
it used to be a lot more prevalent, I think, when surgeons had a lot more say in the contracts, good, bad, or ugly. But
hmm
uh, you do still lose the accounts if you can't get consistent experience, consistent quality in there, and often that
hmm
means a consistent person and team. Like
hmm
they will start looking for another provider. They will start looking for somebody else in there because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, surgeons are creatures of habit. The only variable they want in the OR is the patient, if they can help it.
Exactly. And they want to see the same person in there, and that goes from the scrub tech to the anesthesia provider to us
Hmm.
sitting in the corner with the laptops, right? And it doesn't matter, no offense to big company versus little company, whatever. The logo on the back of your laptop doesn't mean nearly as much as a relationship between the technologist in the room and that surgeon. That's the currency of our field, right? And
Yeah,
so if that relationship is good because the person in the room is well trained and experienced and they have a good relationship with the surgeon, everything's going to be great. But if you start
yeah,
breaking that, if you start moving people in and out a lot, and you have to like, and all of a sudden it's like hey, Sarah's gone. Here's Mike. Mike is, 6 weeks in and just got out of his training program. Surgeon's going to be like, what are you doing to me? And it's like, and then next, another company comes knocking on the door. It's like, hey, we can provide you this, a better model, someone who's
hmm,
experienced, whatever. Be like, I'm going to go with this person. And, they complain up to the hospital. The hospital changed the contract. You know how it is. It's the business of
yeah.
our,
No,
of our
it's
field.
and round we go, right?
hmm The other thing that could happen, just to close out that conversation topic, is they don't leave, and that can be even worse
Yeah.
because it's like you've heard this. I don't know if you've heard this motto before or whatever, but it's like, what if we invest in them and train them and they leave us? What if we don't invest in the training them and they stay? It's like, what if you're not investing in the person and they stay and they're bitter and they're miserable, and next thing you know, they're on the social media anonymous threads and just talking about how terrible their company is, you know?
Right. Or worse, they're a manager and they're
Oh yeah.
affecting multiple people. And then they're like, well, we need a manager. This person's been here. We don't really want to fire them because, their experience X, Y, and Z. But you can see the bleed out that's happening. And the thing is like I said, I'm a big believer that I don't think people intentionally want to be bad employees or bad managers or any of that. I think they just they have misguided, like mentorship or lack of mentorship, or they
Mhm.
don't see really what's going on outside of it, and they don't see a way to solve it. And the reality is like there's solutions for this. It's just you just have to adjust your approach. And sometimes that is what's so scary for people is the unknown and the potential of being bad at something. Like I think when we all started neuromonitoring, we were all pretty bad. Like I don't think anyone came in and was like a solid tech and could solidly
Mhm.
communicate and didn't like screw up their left and their right in
Mhm.
their first or
I,
plug
I I
in.
still reverse my popliteal fossils occasionally. I just you
Yeah,
know.
it happens. I mean, and I think there's a little trauma associated with that. And then of course, like you
Mhm.
get the surgeons who are like, "Oh, is that tech new? Like I can't, I'm gonna really beat up on them." And then when you get good at it, it's like, "Oh, this finally, I've hit my stride. I'm good." And some people want to stay there, which is fine. It's
Sure.
very nice. It's very comfortable to be good and to stay at the same place with the same surgeons. But
Mhm.
especially when you're leading people and the higher up you go, like you need to be challenging yourself because you will
Yes.
have, I mean, I honestly think you need to be challenging yourself at any level because I think
Mhm.
you get stagnant. I think there's always new things to learn. And I think it's good to question like well, first of all, my least favorite phrase is, well, that's what we've always done.
Mhm.
I hate that with a passion. If I'm, on my team, they knew if I asked a question, well, why did you do this? And their answer was, well, that was what I was told to do, or that's what I've always done. I would be staring at them until they gave me another answer. Because I do not accept that answer. That is a lazy answer, to be honest. Like
Mhm.
the question is okay, well, be curious. Why, if this isn't working or this is causing a problem, dig a little deeper. And I think that's where managers could use some help because they don't want to go back and be bad at it. They don't want to struggle through it. So
Mhm.
having someone help them and give them a little guidance of and solutions, whether it be coaching, mentorship, like helps them, helps their team, and that's the big thing is you want to see the trickle down help the team. People will go to companies, but they will leave bad managers.
Yes. When it comes to leadership in particular, I mean, if you really are effectively engaging it, you're either getting better or you're getting worse, right? I mean,
Mhm.
so your momentum should be carrying you forward. You should be moving outside your comfort zone, challenging yourself and growing. That's going to take you up the ranks, so to speak. It's going to take you from team lead to manager, supervisor to, regional manager, whatever, your structure is in your organization. It's naturally going to carry you in that direction. So,
Mhm.
and you might find a spot where you're comfortable and you're kind of like just treading water in your career at a certain point in time. But I think some people do, like you said, some people do want to do that. But also, I think that's also one of the biggest traps of our field is you start off from day one hitting the ground, and it's like boot camp. You have so much to learn. It's
Oh
so
my gosh.
challenging. It's so different. You remember? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you do. And it's like, it's like oh my goodness, what am I getting myself into? I remember my first time walking in an operating room and what that experience was like. It's still fresh in my mind. But um, you know, you have so much to learn, and your goal is that the golden CNIM. You got to get that CNIM. That's your
Hmm.
your golden ticket to success, and everyone's pushing you to get there, and then you achieve it, and then from there, you're kind of on top of the world, and then you do start picking up some of the more advanced modalities if you haven't gotten your cranial nerves yet or your carotids or whatever. But then it starts to plateau very, then
Hmm.
you're on the long plateau, and that's where I think trouble can kick in. Is we want to hire these people that are intelligent, motivated, like hardworking, and then we get them to a certain point and we say stop, you know, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, well, this is the job, this is what you get paid to do now. And but I think a lot of these neuromonitoring companies, there's two things that, and hospitals, neuromonitoring companies, big and small, there's two things I'd like to see them do more of. One, um, to close this out, one is to say, look, we have to find more ways to effectively engage these people. We have to find productive ways for them to get them in business development, get them to be ambassadors to professional societies, teaching, doing posters,
Yeah.
learning, and bringing back that information from these conferences, whatever it is. Uh, you know, Community outreach, being advocates for the schools to say, hey, look, hey, there's this great career
Go
over
to
here. Come
career
check us out.
fairs. Yeah.
Career fairs. This, QA, just QAing chart reviews and things of that, that nature, case reviews, things like that. Whatever it is, you got to find ways to allow them to grow professionally. But so that's one really important thing that I'd like to see them do. But the other thing is, we need someone, we've kind of talked about this, it can't just be promotion from attrition. It's promotion of people that have good people skills that want to develop them and helping them develop it. A neuromonitoring company shouldn't be like, well, look, um, the CNIM is super important, and it's contingent on you getting hired with us, like staying with us, that you get past it, but we're not going to help you get it. We're not going to provide you any resources. Wait a minute, like, is it important to you or not, right? So you
Yeah.
got the same thing has to apply with leadership. We can't just say promote you because you've done this for 5 years and you know every cranial nerve, in and out, whatever. Great, that's all important, but like, how are you developing these leaders? And I'd love to see the professional side do more with leaderships, programs. I'd love to see big companies. Some big companies are starting to do this too, to give full credit to everybody. And I know the professional side is trying to do this as well. But you don't have to reinvent the wheel because we have programs like GoodKnight, right? We have people like you that can do this. And I just think that I want to see more companies and hospitals reach out to someone like you and say, hey, come on in, help us as a consultant, help us develop our leaders, right? And you can
Yeah.
do that. And like I say, I think we see more of what you're doing to make this field more sustainable for people.
Yeah.
So we rebuild the middle of the bell curve in the experience. We have people that are dinosaurs like me, way on the one side, 22 years in this field or whatever. We have a ton of people. I talk to people every day that want to get into this field, right? Like, where do
Yeah.
I go? Where do I get my education? Where do I get my training? What do I do? And I love giving them insights too. But in the middle, we need that middle part, and we keep losing them in different directions to
Yeah,
different,
that 5 year, 7 year itch,
there you go. There you go. Yep. That's a tip of the that's the top of the mountain in my mind. And I mean, because you can be there and be just as effective as someone like me that's been around forever. In if you're well trained and you're really engaging this as a serious profession. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to see more companies and hospitals reach out to you and to tell us how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, no, so my site is goodnightconsulting.net. You can email me Logan at goodnightconsulting.net, and I think I put my information. I'll set it out to you too so people can reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn, Logan McKnight. I do a lot of conversations on LinkedIn, honestly. I think it's been the best tool to connect with people.
Mhm.
What I've found too is the biggest conversation for middle managers and even organizations, and something I didn't realize till way late in my career was I thought, okay, well, here's the ladder I have to climb, right? I'm a technologist, then you become a senior technologist or whatever. You can do every case. Then you become a manager. Then maybe you move on to something else. And I now meet so many people who are like, I never want to manage. It sounds like the worst job in the world, which makes me a little sad because I actually loved managing. It was really hard. I'm not going to lie. It was probably the biggest challenge in my career, was that transition from independent contributor, really solid tech, to being a manager of a team of 10, like overnight. But what I realized eventually was you don't have to do everything as a manager. If you start doling out like some of your tasks, like once I realized I didn't actually have to do the schedule as a manager, I could actually give the schedule to my techs. And then I could actually go be a leader and do my one-on-ones and talk with their career development. I could give QA stuff to my team. Once I started divvying up like the tasks and giving people the opportunity to try on different roles and things like that, my team was much more engaged. They saw like the light at the end of the tunnel. And so I think that I would also say like that's free advice for anybody. If you are managing or in a team, like don't try to do everything. Like that is not your role. Your role is to facilitate people's career growth. And so that's a big thing that I really hope people recognize in the field is like you as leaders have the opportunity to facilitate the younger generation staying here for much longer.
Well said. Honestly, I've learned from my mistakes doing this too. When I was a manager of a state out west, I had a north team and a south team that covered like the north and south end of the states. And yeah, I made the same mistake. I was like, I have to do the schedule.
Hmm.
I'm responsible for all of this. And it got more complicated with the people on the ground in the south that were like 4 hours away from me or whatever. Knew what was going on better than I did because they were more connected with the surgeons and everything. And so eventually I had to learn, like, look, no, I need to let them do the schedule
Hmm.
down there. Okay. And then when I let go of
Let
that,
go.
yes. And then you prevent that mentality of like, nothing's going to change. No one's listening to me. No one cares. I have no opportunity to change my environment, my future,
Yeah.
the course of my professional life. You give them that opportunity.
No,
But
ownership, giving
yeah,
people ownership totally changes their
ownership.
perspective.
hmm yeah, exactly. Ownership. I love that. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. Like I said, we certainly would love to have you back in the program in the future. Good Night Consulting, you're doing some great work in helping uh, healthcare leaders navigate reducing the turnover by just investing in the people, leading with confidence, preventing that burnout. Definitely check out this program. I think if you're listening to this and you run a neuromonitoring program, a department, a company, big or small, Logan is worth talking to. I think she can really help you just maintain a very effective workplace environment. So, Logan, thank you so much for being on the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited
All
for
right.
people to listen to the webinar, and yeah, we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the IONM4LIFE podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please remember to like, subscribe, and tell a friend. Join us next time for more stimulating adventures.